Buongiorno, everyone. Welcome back to the Magpie Channel TV. We're here today, of course, to talk about the villain of town, Steve Bruce. We're joined by the lovely Kendall, of course, Newcastle's most famous Steve Bruce ranter, and and the very brilliant Jude from Jude's Journey. Go check out his channel, a great channel. Both links will be in the description below. Well, Jude, being an Aston Villa fan, knows the Steve Bruce saga inside out. He's been there. He's done it. Luckily, come out the other end of it and flying high in the Premier League at the minute, actually appointing a good manager and got a takeover, both things that we're desperate for. And look where you are now. Brilliant team. So we'll get straight into it, Jude, with you. This was Jude's idea. He wanted to come and discuss Steve Bruce after seeing our reaction the other day. So, Jude, where are Newcastle at now in terms of where Steve Bruce was in his Aston Villa reign?
I think it's slightly different. First of all, thank you for having me on. I just thought it'd be great to discuss, the similarities, easy for me to say, and the differences between Steve Bruce at Villa and Newcastle after watching you against us on Saturday. And I think it's a little bit different. Of course, when he came in at Villa, he was in the Championship and he steadied the ship for us in the first season, and then it was sort of the second season and into the very start of the third season where things started to go wrong. In terms of your first season in the Premier League, I remember chatting to you and saying that from the outside looking in, it was looking like a pretty good season last season. Having looked back on it, that probably weren't the right thing to say. And it's very similar in terms of the end of his tenure, in terms of Steve Bruce and the way he's acting right now and the things he's saying in the media. But the matter of the fact is, and I don't know who this comes down to, probably Mike Ashley, Newcastle aren't a mid-table fighting relegation club, and it's not. It doesn't take a football fan to realise that.
It's true, but some teams like Newcastle, like Aston Villa, and even the likes of Nottingham Forest, who haven't been in the Premier League for about almost 20 years now, these are big clubs by history, by stature, but once you're not in the top 4, top 6 for a number of years, you get forgotten about, and neutral fans start to think, well, they're not a big club. Why should they want to be in the top 4, top 6? But I think any team of any ambition, I don't care if you're the 3 teams I just mentioned, or who else, Notts County, anyone else should want more. Everyone should want a little bit of ambition. It's not too much to ask for, just to want to see your team better. And when it's dwindling away under bad ownership, you had it with Randy Lerner, we've still got it with Mike Ashley, and the managerial appointments that are absolutely shocking. How Steve Bruce is still in football at this level. After Villa, he should never have got another job in the Premier League, but up stepped Mike Ashley, the unambitious owner. Kendall, what was his first season like at us? Because everyone was giving him praise outside of the club. Everyone was like, oh, well, he's 13th. He's doing a really good job. What the Newcastle fans want. Compared to where we are now, was last season a success?
The only thing I can think of is the fact that he inherited a well-drilled, well-organised Rafa Benitez team. So he kind of, got on board with the team, didn't make too many signings, obviously, that at that point. He inherited a team that knew what was happening. They were organised. We pretty much had a strong starting 11 at that point, consistently. And now he spent 18 months unraveling every single foundation that was ever set at the club. Bit by bit, defensively, counter-attacking. He has just unraveled every single bit of it. So that's why I can only think, because when he first came in, results were going his way, and even then, though, we saw through it and we said he is riding on luck at that point. Even at that point, we were aware that it wasn't his managerial prowess that got him the results or anything like that. Because we didn't beat teams comfortably or anything like that. It was kind of always a last minute. Obviously, we saw at Everton, we got a draw. The 94th minute, scored 2 goals in 2 minutes in extra time. Added time. Things like that, and that's just continued even irrespective of how crap the football and the tactics or lack of have got. It was just, he had a lot of friends in the media, and now I really do think that this is like sort of the beginning of the end, because the media are now realizing what's going on. More are calling him out on it. Talksport, who were like his biggest fans when he first like came to us, they were absolutely loving it and loving the fact that they were blaming us for everything. Even them, like Simon Jordan, for example, are now realizing that, okay, this is really bad, this is terrible to watch, and they're calling him out. So finally, it's not just us looking delusional and looking like spoilt brats who expect more, because it's actually people who are his media friends who are calling it out now. But yeah, his first season, as I say, he inherited a relatively decent squad and a well-drilled squad, and I think that's probably why people have supported him and thought it was acceptable at the time. Look at it now.
And you talk about the media there. I think it must have been on Saturday. I think Jimmy Redknapp in the studio said, like, he was trying to say like it's not working, but he said a change in manager wouldn't bring different results until the ownership changes, which I can see his point. Like, let's not forget that Mike Ashley is the key problem here. Like, we wouldn't have a manager like Steve Bruce. No Premier League manager would have a manager like Steve Bruce if it wasn't for the likes of Mike Ashley. But Jude, yous got rid of him. Yous were sitting 15th in the Championship after one win in 9 games in the second tier of English football with Steve Bruce. Who did you want in as manager at that time to progress? And did you think at the time Dean Smith was a good appointment?
Yeah, I think at the time, yeah, it was. It was one of the. At the time, there was a lot of talk around Thierry Henry, Dean Smith. I think Rui Freire, I think his name is, Manchester United assistant. But we went with Smith purely because he was the complete opposite of Bruce. He played attacking style of football in the Championship, and he'd worked up the ranks, and obviously done very well at Brentford, and then come to Villa with a bigger budget and a bigger scope to do things. So yeah, it was Smith. Sounded like the wise appointment, and obviously it has worked out like that. But just going back on what you were saying in terms of the first season at Newcastle, that's what he did at Villa. He steadied the ship, like I said, did okay, and then the downfall sort of started coming to his. Well, of course, he failed at Wembley. Could have all been very different if he didn't get over the line at Wembley. But in hindsight, I think that was a blessing in disguise, losing at Wembley.
Yeah, like that's what I can't understand about Steve Bruce and how he's still so far ahead in his career, because he's been in the game, like in managerial sense, over 20 years, and all he's really got to show for it is losing a playoff final with Villa and losing an FA Cup final, was it with Hull, after being 2-0 up. Like, they're his 2 biggest achievements, losing 2 finals. He's done nothing else. It's mad, man, isn't it? So, like,
absolutely,
it's just
success anywhere.
I know.
Anywhere.
That's what I'm saying. How's he still at this level 20 years on?
Unbelievable.
But it's just like, I was talking to a good friend of mine beforehand. I was trying to get him on the channel, but unfortunately he was too busy. A friend of mine that I grew up with, he's a born and bred Villa fan. His dad's from Birmingham, born and bred Villa fan. So I was talking to him, trying to get him on to join us for a chat. Unfortunately, he wasn't available. So he sent me a bunch of notes. I've jotted a few of them down. Like, he's raised some good points. And he's basically saying Steve Bruce is just following the same script. He just starts off by saying the job's difficult. Then he turns on the fans, how they've got unrealistic expectations, i.e. Villa getting promoted. He didn't think he could get Villa promoted with the team that he had. And then Dean Smith
comes. Why would you go to a job where you probably your goal is to get the promoted and then say, well, sorry, I'm never going to get you promoted? Like,
I know.
But he signed half of them players.
I know.
So it was his picks.
So, like, after Dean Smith came in, I think he went on like a 10-game winning run and got promoted, basically with the same team that Steve Bruce had.
Yeah, he he buys the right players. That's one credit I will give to Steve Bruce. He got us out the Championship by the signings he made. If it weren't for them signings, then Smith maybe not would have done as well in the first season. But he buys the players, but then doesn't play them in the right system. He'll play a 5 at the back, or he'll play Mile Jedinak, who's a central defensive midfielder at centre back, when we've got a perfectly
perfect
centre back.
It's like deja vu, man.
It is, isn't it?
Like deja vu.
And then he'll make
a Groundhog Day, innit?
He'll play like James Chester, who's got an injury to his knee and basically ruined his career. Yet we've got Tommy Elphick, who's a centre back. Why don't you play him? Yet you go and play Jedinak and Chester. That makes sense.
Florian Lejeune. It literally is just like for like. Like it literally is just like days repeating itself. Proper deja vu. Like Steve Bruce, Kendall probably has got the best team that we've seen since the last time we were in the Premier League. I don't even know. Was it Pardew when we had like the French Revolution?
Yeah,
we've probably got the best team now. Like Jude said, like he does sign the right players. Like we've got in Sir Maximin, Callum Wilson, Fraser, Lewis. We've made some decent signings under Steve Bruce. But why aren't we getting the best out of them? Why are we in this rut? Why is Callum Wilson just standing up top, isolated to bits? What's happened to Sir Maximin? What's happened to Shaw, the Longstaffs?
It comes down to him. Every single time comes down to him. He makes the right signings and doesn't know how to utilise them, doesn't know how to play them properly, doesn't play them properly, chooses to play for example, like we played Jeff Hendrick as a winger when we've got 4 available wingers on the bench. It's like just things like that is just bizarre to me. It's just very odd. And then he'll go and do like a random thing, like Kraft hasn't played for 8 games, and then he'll stick him in against like Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? Like just things like that. It just makes no sense whatsoever as to why you would do things like that, and why you would make signings that you need. Because arguably we needed a left back because we only had Paul Dummett at that point, so we signed Jamal Lewis. We needed a striker, so got Callum Wilson in. Fair enough. We needed a couple more wingers because obviously Almiron was kind of fitting in as a winger. At that point, Matt Ritchie. Do you know what I mean? Like we didn't really have wingers, if you will. And we brought in St. Maximin, brought in Joe Linton, who was going to play as a striker, but he doesn't really have a position anyways. Just on the bench is probably best for him. And just brought in the right players, and then has ruined every single one of them. Like you bring in talent and ruin it. It's just so strange to me. Like in terms of Jude, like was there any players that he brought in for Aston Villa and kind of ruined their potential and made them regress a little bit?
I'd probably say, yeah, like I mentioned, James Chester, he was signed under Bruce actually, and he was a great servant for the club. He had a knee injury, and in the I can't remember which year it was, but instead of opting to sign a centre back and also having another fit centre back in Tommy Elphick on the bench, he decided to play Jedinak, who's a central defensive midfielder, and Chester, who had a knee problem and prolonged him even more. So yeah, that ruined his career. I thought Grealish, he always tried to force him to play really deep, where in recent times he's played in the final third. And yeah, I just think one thing I want to touch upon, and I know you've got a lot of injuries, is you always used to have loads of injuries at Villa, and you've got the same from right. And there's got to be something to his training regime or something. I don't know what.
I think in pre-season we did. I don't know if it was this pre-season or the one before. I think it was the one before, wasn't it, when he first came over? Like, we were having like these intense training sessions. Like the players spoke about it in his first week. I think we were over in China. We're having a pre-season in China, and like the training sessions were just so intense. He was making them train like twice a day, like really vigorous sessions. It's like, calm down, mate. This is pre-season. Like, and I like the players are there to get fit, but you don't need to ruin them before the season even starts, before we've even kicked a competitive ball.
They haven't like achieved anything by doing them training sessions. He got worse. So what was even the point? There was no point in them ridiculous training sessions because they've just got 10 times worse. And then we've had millions of injuries consistently. Like players like, I mean, Paul Dummett's been pretty injury prone for a while, but like I think under Rafa's last season, he was like playing pretty much most games. Like Kieran Clark, for example. Fernandez, who played every single game of last season, has now had like 2 injuries this season. Like something is going wrong somewhere along the line. I've seen when he was at Sunderland, he had serious injury problems. When he was at Aston Villa, he had serious injury problems. Like it's following him everywhere he goes. Like surely, when does it get to a point where he realizes he's the problem? Like when is it going to get to that point? Instead of blaming everyone else and blaming the fans and the players and the unrealistic expectations that we have.
But that is I don't understand, isn't it? He just blames everyone but himself. Go on, Jude.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And I think, I think I heard today that which is very unlike Bruce. He's always had friends in the media, hasn't he? But he only let the broadcast media speak to him today, as opposed to the written media. I think that just proves what position he's at. But also, what I find really hard to figure out is he played under one of the best managers ever in Sir Alex Ferguson. Yet he hasn't, he's got no plan B. He's got one playing style. And, there was a topic at one point when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was struggling where you say all of Sir Alex Ferguson's players who've gone on to be managers hasn't turned out to be great managers. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I think it's a mad one with Steve Bruce particularly, and maybe with Roy Keane as well. Like they were both very, very good captains under arguably the best manager that's ever lived in Sir Alex Ferguson. Like in the early 90s, Steve Bruce, he was a hard nut as well. Like he wasn't a soft player. Like you can tell by his nose he got stuck in. Like he was a solid centre-back, a brilliant captain in a brilliant team with the greatest manager of all time. Why is the transition into managerial management being so hard? Like even when Roy Keane took his first job at Sunderland, he took them from the bottom of the Championship up to the Premier League. So he done well initially, but it hasn't really gone on. But Steve Bruce, he's honestly a mystery to me because at least we know Roy Keane's solid. Like you'd walk into a dressing room and be scared of Roy Keane. He'd probably inherited the hairdryer treatment. But Steve Bruce, he's just too nice. Like he's just, like everyone goes, like, oh, he's a nice guy, he's a good man, a manager, he'll come in, give you a Brucey Bear hug. You don't always need that. Sometimes you need a manager like Sir Alex Ferguson, like a Roy Keane, who's going to come and just tell you how it is. Like lay down the law, do things my way. Instead, like you just feel like in the Newcastle dressing room and every other dressing room, I'd suppose, Villa, Sunderland, under Steve Bruce, it's just like that they're having a laugh. Like they probably go in and play a game of Connect 4 or something, and there's just no discussion, no training. No idea. And as you talk about plan B, that's the biggest issue. I dread half-time. Like once we go into half-time, I'm just thinking, well, just chuck in the white flag. If we're not winning, if we're not 2-0 up, we'll probably lose, be lucky to get a point. Like we played Villa last season, and I got quite a few messages from Villa fans then. I think we got beat 2-0. In that game, I think we had like 3 right-backs on the field. We had players out of position. Like I think we threw about like 4 strikers on, and all the Villa fans were saying like, "This is exactly what he used to do with us." Like,
yeah, one of the strangest out of position players he ever played was Chris Samba. We had, bear in mind, we had a striker and forwards on the bench. Come to 15 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go. Who should we put up top as a striker? I know, Chris Samba.
Really? I think I remember that actually. Did he not play up front for Cardiff as well? Or was that Southampton? I think I might be mixing them up. But playing a centre back up front, man, like that's taking the mick. That, like you say, Jack Grealish, who's arguably one of the best players in the league at the minute, whether he plays as a number 10 or out on the left. Where were you saying you had him like playing as like a deep line centre mid?
Yeah, he used to force him to come back and defend, and you could see he was getting really frustrated. Yeah, we'd play him on the wing, and don't get me wrong, at the time, most Villa fans were very reluctant to play him on the wing, and in a way it has turned out, but he got more of a free attacking role, whereas and we like play on the counter attack. Whereas under Bruce, it was all backs to the wall, 11 men behind the ball. And yeah, one thing I was interested to ask you guys about was Ali St-Maximin is a very similar type of player. Obviously, he didn't get he's come back from injury, but what has he got out of him?
I'll let you go, Kendall.
Nothing, absolutely nothing. I'm not going to blame all that on Steve Bruce because I think St. Maximin's decision making is sometimes a bit off.
Yeah.
But like this is where the managerial capability comes in, because a player like St. Maximin needs to be guided into his, his prime years, because his decision making is so, erratic, and he has that capability. It just sort of, because he is so tricky, and like he wants to always, do like sort of showboating and that. Like he needs to be guided and directed properly in how to put them elements into a game. And a manager like Steve Bruce, who just wants to sit 10 men behind the halfway line, deep in their own half, like he's just never ever going to get the real talent out of a player like St. Maximin. Obviously, like you say with Grealish, because they play so deep and St. Maximin's having to bloody defend. St. Maximin is not a defender in any sense of the word. Like he has no defensive capabilities, and he shouldn't have to have defensive capabilities. He's a tricky, skillful winger. He said he likes playing even like centrally as a number 10 sort of position. So why should he then having to be cover Jamal Lewis, who again his defensive awareness has just completely gone downhill under this sort of environment, because they're playing him in a flat back four. It's just he'll never get the real talent out of St. Maximin, and that's what worries me about losing him, because we'll lose him and he'll go into the team and he will like under a proper manager, and he will absolutely like whatever league he's in on fire. And like that is what I'm concerned about, because I know that we would have, it's like what could have been. Like, and I just don't want that at all. Like, obviously, as we see, Jack Grealish now, one of the best players in the league at this point. He's absolutely brilliant. I bet under Steve Bruce, he would have thought nowhere near that. Like,
yeah, no, and you're totally right. I agree, and I think Steve Bruce, we've said it many times, his playing style. If you look at Rafa Benitez or Dean Smith, there was like, right, we're going to win this game. Steve Bruce is going before the match. He's going, right, how can we just not lose this game?
Yeah.
I've said a million times, haven't I? I've said we go out not to lose rather than to win. I've said a million times. Like, he just always sets up for a defeat every single time. He'll sit before the match and he'll like, so and so are really, really decent. It doesn't matter who we're playing. We could be playing bloody Town or Town.
You said that against Oxford?
Yeah. Oh, they're a really good side. They've done really well. They've got strong players, and it'll be really difficult for us to, beat them. But we're a working pro. Honestly, if I hear working progress from my family, it's too soon. It really is too soon.
He does make excuses before games, though, doesn't he? Like he already like sets up to lose in pre-match conferences. Like you would have thought like the pre-match conference was the post-match conference and would be beat. Like that's the way he sets up. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like
his phrases, like you could keep like a log of like the most used phrases. Like some of them that stand out to me, Villa. Well, he's been there. He's got the T-shirt. You got to give him time. Or like his interview. What was it? Again, after the post-match Villa, he said, "Yes, well, I got a lot of positive signs to take from that game." He had one shot on target. How's that positive?
Yeah, he did that in the Villa game, didn't he? He was like, "Oh well, yeah, like that." There's lots of positives I can say from this game.
I'm really encouraged.
I'm really encouraged by large parts of this game. Yeah, like you watched that game.
Encourage that. Yes, you are going to take us down, because that's the only encouragement I can get from that.
Yeah, like Jude, you watched that game against us. Like, if you were a Newcastle fan, was there any moments you could pinpoint where you would be encouraged?
No. No, it just it reminds me so much of his time at Villa towards the end, and we were all turning on him. We literally were just, you had no idea going forward. You had St. Maximin on the bench, who weren't fully fit. Why rush him back? It goes back to my point again, what he did to Chester. Do you really want to risk a player who's arguably one of your best players and risk him even longer?
Same with Ryan Fraser as well.
Yeah, so if I'm watching that as a Newcastle fan, I'd be, well, I would be angry, and I would be wanting Bruce out, and I'd be wanting to know what's next. And you could just see from the players, you know, the way they were coming off the pitch is like they'd just lost an FA Cup final. They're not playing for him, and that was what was happening with Villa.
Yeah, Wayne noticed that it was like they just lost like a big game, like not just like a league game. Like the body language on the players told 1,000 stories. So as I said before, like Villa got rid of him in the Championship after winning one game in 9. Like what run away on now, Kendall? Is it nine in a row losses, something like that? Like one goal in 9 games, something drastic like that. Which is why we're now in this discussion. It's even in the media. Like you say, like his friends in the media have been sucking him off for the last couple of years, but it's coming to an end now. Surely you would have thought Mike Ashley's going to pull a finger out and draw a line under this era. Probably not happen, but it's got to be coming to an end sooner or later. We've got Leeds tomorrow. Probably lose that one. That'll be 10 losses in a row. I'll ask Jude this, and then I'll come to you, Kendall, and see if you agree. We just discussed how you got rid of Steve Bruce, throwing a cabbage off his head, and replaced him by a good enough manager. You were linked with a few good managers, and you replaced him with Dean Smith. Who would you see as a fitting replacement right now to replace Steve Bruce at Newcastle to push up a couple of places in the league? Like, we're not asking for miracles, just for a little bit of progression.
Yeah. Oh, good question. With the recent departure of Frank Lampard, would you take him?
Anyone. I'd take Frank Lampard Senior at this race. Like, anyone better than Steve Bruce. Like, honestly, you don't need to ask me if I'd take him. I'd fucking take him. Like, throw any name at fucking Ronald McDonald.
Let me think. Frank Lampard. You could have Rafa back.
Yeah, that's
Eddie Howe. Steve Bruce. Eddie Howe. That's a good shout. Yeah, Eddie Howe. Yeah.
Is there anyone like? Can you think of anyone in the Championship who was similar to Dean Smith, who may be ready for a step up to the Premier League?
Put me on the spot here, mate. Nah, my wife gone blank. Anyone?
How about you, Kendall? Anyone you can think? Like, who do you want to replace Steve Bruce realistically that'll come and work for Mike Ashley?
Yeah, so realistically,
because we know Rafa won't.
I think any self-respecting person probably wouldn't want to come.
Yeah, I've been saying that for months.
Mike Ashley, I really do, but I would love Eddie Howe. I really would. In terms of Frank Lampard, I've been having a bit of back and forth with people on Twitter all day because I don't think Frank Lampard is a sustainable option. I think he's like a short-term option, just because.
But is anyone sustainable under Mike Ashley?
Well, no, exactly that. Well, that's the thing. So, it probably wouldn't be the worst thing because, long term, it wouldn't be happening anyways. So, yeah, Eddie Howe for me, because I know.
We've lost your sound there. Oh, no, we're good.
Am I back? Sorry.
Yeah.
And my phone just started getting those on Do Not Disturb. Let's keep doing that. It's doing me head in. Yeah, so Rafa's not coming back. Eddie Howe's the only replacement I can possibly see happening, if that. I don't want bloody Mark Hughes. He was the next name in line, and he sat slagging us up on Match of the Day. Like, realistically, clearly he doesn't want the job. Otherwise, he wouldn't be sitting moaning about us on Match of the Day, calling us all sorts. It's like the only person I can probably see from the Championship that I would be obviously happy with, even though half of them would be a step up at this point. Bloody Neil Warnock could be a step up. I just love Neil Warnock. I think he's class crack, Neil Warnock.
At least his press conferences are interesting.
Yeah, I just love him. He's class. It's my favourite thing when he's like, "You've got to fucking die to get 3 points." Like, I just love that. I love it. Possibly Brentford's manager. I forgot his name.
Thomas Frank.
Yes, he plays progressive. Look, they outplayed us massively when we played them in the cup. So I would love a manager I just want a progressive mindset, because with Steve Bruce, we're just going backwards, and he has obviously said he's bang average manager. Which, why would you even admit that? Like, that's actually embarrassing. Like, what sort of self-respect you have for yourself to call yourself bang average? Like, it's not even like, when people try to be humble, it's actually that's embarrassing to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love a manager like Thomas Frank. He just plays progressive football, attacking football, knows how to recruit. Like, as a lot of his team from last season have obviously gone into Premier League positions and are really, really doing well. So yeah, anyone like that. I just think anyone, as Keg says, I think anyone would be a good replacement at this point.
I think you like. I agree with you. You need a attacking style of manager, and ultimately, I don't. However far down the line this is, I look at Villa when they were under Steve Bruce. They were under Dr. Tony Joya, who is now in prison, I think, because of
Probably for the best.
Yeah, because of funds losing in China. But you need, in terms of stability, you need Mike Ashley at the club. I don't know how close that is. There's always talk. I mean, that's a debate for another night. But
yeah, I just don't think anyone at this point, to be honest. Obviously, I think Lee Ryder's just brought an article out saying that there's kind of on the sense that they're sticking with him till the end of the season, at least, was the words that were used. So, woo, Sky Bet Championship cannot
that wouldn't surprise you.
I've resigned myself to the fact that we're there next season.
Yeah, I know.
I just can't see it any past it. And to be fair, obviously, I know it's going to be different this time because we don't have Rafa. But that season was one of my favourites ever in the Championship with Rafa. It genuinely was.
Yeah, well, we've been relegated twice in the last 12 years, and the Premier League football hasn't been as bad as it is now. Even under Steve McLaren, it was dreadful, but it was better than this shit. But like I say, like, when you're down the Championship, at least you're winning every game. At least, like, we won the league. At least we were top of the league. Particularly the first time, we're pretty much pissed it. Second time was a little bit closer. Actually, thank you to Aston Villa and Jack Grealish. You actually helped us win that. Yeah, Jack Grealish won us that league that day. So thanks for him. I know. But yeah, like, it is quite refreshing to go down. It gives you, like, a chance to take a couple of steps back and regroup. And thankfully, we actually had decent managers. Even Chris Hughton, first time round, done a great job. But then second time, we were fortunate enough that Rafa stayed with after getting relegated. But the style of football, it's just so different. Like, it is like a bit of a breath of fresh air getting relegated. It's like Villa spent, was it 3 seasons in the Championship, or was it 2 when you went down?
3 seasons. So he steadied the ship, finishing 13th, and then got to a playoff final, lost that, and then he lasted. He lasted till Preston North End, which was till October in the 3rd season.
And so after getting relegated, you spent a little bit longer in the Championship than you would have liked to have. You went the long way around it, but you got a takeover, you got a good manager in, and now if you win your games in hand, you can go up to 4th. There's talks of you're probably playing some of the best football in the league. You could finish with European football this season. Would you say getting relegated, was it a good thing looking back on it?
Yes, in terms of, well, we didn't get relegated with Bruce. It was a new takeover in the Championship. We had Di Matteo for the first 8 or 9 games, and then Bruce came in. He steadied the ship. So
that's right. My bad.
He's a good manager at steadying the ship in the Championship, and he got in the right signings. But in terms of progressing forward, once you've got that 13th place finish, where do you go from there? We've got, we've got no plan B. So he makes brilliant signings. If you're gonna, any advice I give to future club hiring Steve Bruce, not that any of them would, utilize the signings out of him and then get him out the door.
So bring him in for a summer window, then piss off.
Yeah.
Sounds good. But he never looks like beyond the next game, though, does he? Like, he's got no interest. Like the problem that Mike actually had with Rafa. Rafa wanted to progress the club. He wanted to build foundations, not for the immediate future, but like 5-10 years down the line. Rafa wanted to build a club that he probably wouldn't even be there to see out anyway. That's the ambition of a good manager, someone who actually has an ambition, who wants to look forward. But Steve Bruce just literally, he barely even looks at the next game. Like, we know he doesn't do his research on the opposition. Like you imagine, like, Rafa would probably sit at home, get with his pen and paper out, try and like draw up plans. What does Steve Bruce do?
And like Rafa is a student of the game. Like he absolutely understands football so deeply beyond like what any Steve Bruce can ever imagine. And I really feel like football is like Rafa's real true like passion in life. Obviously, aside from his family, we know he loves his family, but I really think that football like runs so deep in his like blood. And Steve Bruce, I don't even think he likes it. Does he even know? Does like, aside from the fact that he played and he was a relatively decent player, I mean he scored some banging goals, to be fair to him, does he even like football? Does he enjoy management? Does he really understand the new sort of elements to the game that like managers like Wenger and even like as far back as Wenger and Pep Guardiola and Klopp have brought to the... I just do not think he understands that at all. He truly like is so Jurassic in his tactics and the way he plays, and he just doesn't understand this like forward thinking mindset. And for a defender who was like a relatively good defender, like really quality in in his peak, and for him and not even know how to play defensive football.
Yeah, that's another point. David again.
Very weird to me. Very weird.
Yeah, very similar to Villa as well. And that was a point that we kept raising. He's been a defender, yet he can't defend. Just going back to the tactics and, like you said, not looking ahead. I read an article today on the Mail that was actually published, years ago actually. But again, there was a lot of similarities, and he actually said that Bruce, it was something about an iPad. Like they had to at Sunderland, they had to introduce him to an iPad to like get his tactics out, and yeah.
Well, they bring in one of them Apple geeks to show him a tutorial.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't surprise me though. It genuinely doesn't.
I took down a good quote from my friend Jake today, me Villa friend fan. He said, hang on, where is it? He says, like in his first season, he steadied the ship, as was said. He steadied a turbulent ship, but it quickly became clear he had no ideas to progress a club. He's an old-fashioned dinosaur in a modern game, void of ideas, technically short in most departments, and in a fast-moving game, Bruce is just being left behind. Like that just pretty much sums everything up. Like he started managing in the late 90s, and it's like he's just stuck there. It's like he learned his craft. Well, kind of learned his craft like under Sir Alex Ferguson, and that was it. Like the game moves so quick. Like if you watch 90s football compared to now, the way things move, it's so much quicker. Very different style. And he's just trying to just chug along doing the same shit. Like we say, it's following the same script. It's like there's a DNA. Every club he goes to does the same thing.
It's so much more tactically minded now. Like the game that we're in now, obviously this whole tiki-taka football is like coming. We can't even string one pass together. Never mind play bloody tiki-taka football. Christ. We try and play tiki-taka football with the other team. We're like, here you go. Charity FC, you can just have 3 points and you can have a goal, and it's like handing out. That there's that meme. Is it like Oprah? And she's like, you can have one, you can have one. That's what we are. Like with everyone else, we don't want points for ourselves. We just want to hand it to everyone else. Actually, it's just embarrassing. So embarrassing now, man. I hate that. It's like become to a point where it's like actually embarrassing to say that you support Newcastle because everyone's like, oh.
And I feel sorry for you. Like back in the 90s, it sounds like, oh, Newcastle are a really good team, mate. Now it really is just it's so embarrassing. But
that article I mentioned was written 10 years ago, and that was suggesting that he had gone and he was past his time as a manager.
10 years ago.
Oh no! Imagine what he's going to be like now.
But imagine this being like an audition for his next club, if there is a next club. Where does he go from here? Who is appointing Steve Bruce? Like after seeing the DNA that he brings through to every team, after no ambition, no progression, who appoints him?
How did we get him?
Because of that fucking fat cockney prick.
Like this is what I mean. Like he shouldn't have even had a job after blooming Sunderland. Do you know what I mean? Like after he practically ruined them, he shouldn't have had a job, and then he's continued to blooming manage Sheffield Wednesday, Aston Villa, us, Hull. Like since then. it's mad how these managers like Tony Pulis, Mark Hughes, Alan Pardew, who's now women director of football somewhere random like Slavia Prague or someone. No, where is it?
I don't know. I know he got
maybe
sacked from the Dutch league, didn't he? I don't know where he went after
he's
that.
director of football somewhere. I mean, there was a picture floating around the other day wearing like a wool coat and a Louis Vuitton scarf.
Oh, get you.
Like how these managers, Big Sam is another one. How they keep getting jobs is like, why move forward? But then you go and do, like give Lampard a job, for example, and look what's happened. Like it's just you just don't know where to go, and you sort of it's like you stick to what you know. But it's time to move on, man. Football needs the mindset has changed now. We need new, upcoming, fresh ideas now.
Thoroughly agreed. And you've got to question the pride of a bloke who's managed 2 Midlands clubs, 2 Sheffield clubs, 2 Northeast clubs, especially as a Geordie going to Sunderland. Like what kind of man are you? Like you're fucking pathetic. And like the likes of Sam Allardyce. Like Sam Allardyce has a good track record of keeping teams from getting relegated, so you can kind of see where he keeps getting jobs. Like it's like a last resort. Like if you're dead in the shit, here we got Sam Allardyce got sacked from his last job, get him in. But I honestly don't know where Steve Bruce fits in anywhere. As you say, 10 years ago he was done, but he still keeps getting jobs. And like, where does he go from here? Like, I'm not even interested where he goes from here. My concern is where we go from here, because I think under Mike Ashley, we get someone similar, if not potentially worse. If there's somebody out there worse, I don't know. My fear is what actually happens next. Like if we woke up in the morning and the gods have answered and Mike Ashley's finally sacked him, how long can we celebrate the second for? Because it's not going to get much worse. It's Mark Hughes. He's another one of the merry-go-round dinosaur managers. He's the bookies' favourites. But as much as we'd like to get Eddie Howe in, unfortunately, that may not be realistic right now. And as we say, like, which self-respecting manager would work under Mike Ashley? That's the biggest question. Who would come back here? Because we know Rafa wouldn't.
Exactly.
Right, we'll wrap that up there then, guys. We've been going on quite a while. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for your input. Good to see you again, Jude and Kendall, as always. We'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, lovely.
Tomorrow. I know. We're gonna have another Brucey rant tomorrow when we get stuffed 5-2 again.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. The links will be in the description to Jude's channel and Kendall's, as always. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. And we'll have just hit 9,000 subscribers on the road to 10. So don't forget to subscribe. Thanks very much, everyone. Come back for the Leeds game if you dare. Hello. Got a little guest for the last few seconds, right? I'll let you go, Kendall. Thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy yourself.